Hey everyone! Thanks for listening in. Yes, it's the devil again. For another episode of The Devil Show. Today, I want to talk about liberalism. Being a liberal. All too often, liberals feel, I suppose just like everybody else, that they have been the great saviors of our society. They're the ones that came up with real change. Any progressive element in the history of human beings is because of liberal thinking, such as the Constitution, the idea of democracy, the idea of even Social Security and human rights, even gay rights or civil rights, or women's rights, or any of a number of rights that for some reason conservatives resisted. Which is hysterical to me. But that's another point. The fact that Christian conservatives are not interested in the rights of other people is its own humor. And I realize liberals think that that's why they're on the side of what is good, and that the conservatives are on the side of what is evil. Which, of course, I'm in favor of evil. So the way they destroy or resist having people identified as human beings in need of rights should be obvious to a Christian conservative, but it doesn't seem to be obvious to them. So the liberals feel they're on higher ground because they are the ones thinking of such things. But what the liberals keep thinking in their arrogant way is that Christians don't want to be good. And there is such contempt for Christians, which, for me, I understand where you're coming from, but it doesn't make any sense. The societies around the world always benefit by the obedient, faithful people, the ones that are willing to obey the laws and use their ethical principles within their religion to behave properly. So you need good Christian conservatives or faithful conservatives who are willing to do. I mean, if 95% of your society is law-abiding and is essentially behaves well within the construct of a society, then that's going to be beneficial to that society. So liberals need to get off their high horse and acknowledge the benefit of having so many good-natured people who want to behave well and want to be law-abiding. I grant you their religious element in contrast to their political positions are a problem. But you at least have to give them that. You need people of faith. And you need to stop being contemptuous of them because they don't seem to understand, the enlightenment that comes with liberal thinking that brought us a variety of human rights and liberal ideas. But that's just really the half of it. Yeah, so you should definitely be honoring the law-abiding religious right person, even though they do not seem to get the higher principles or the higher authority that you seem to come from a place of intellect and logic and reason. Because clearly religious thinking has done nothing but the opposite of those things. Well, I suppose. I mean, I get it. I get what you're thinking, but acting in your sense of superiority, I mean, we really did need, well, human beings needed liberal thinking to progress, to move humanity into a better place. But that's not what's going to save you. That's not what's going to save the world. The people of faith are the only ones that are going to save the world. So liberals who really are devoid of any kind of sense of spirit don't really have a sense about, I don't know, a higher plane of consciousness. I mean, it's got to go beyond the intellectual, because that's always, what you need are people who are committed at some divine way for all of the issues or principles that you hold near and dear as a liberal. For example, you really want people to feel a deeper reason. They want to have a divine level of connection to the idea of human rights, that all people should have basic human rights. They should all be able to have a place to live. They should all be able to have access to food and water. Those kind of things. So they should be treated well just because they're here on earth as a human being. They shouldn't be treated poorly because they don't have money, or whatever, a number of other things that somebody might have that goes against conservative thinking. Conservative thinking is warped. I totally agree. However, it is only the faithful who understand the higher value of divine existence, of divine connection, that's going to turn your liberal principled ideas into a higher place of being, a more divine purpose. And liberals will lack that sense of divinity. They can stand in all of their intellectual sense of superiority over it, but you really want to encourage, especially, we'll just say Christians, but people of faith, to act at that level, because that's where you liberals and the faithful can meet. Because at this higher divine plane, God is going to want all of his children to be treated well, to be treated equally. And there isn't supposed to be these kind of distinctions. There's supposed to be a sense of real non-judgment and forgiveness and even love. And it is that love that's going to bring about the peace. For all the liberal thinking that you have, and as good as you think you have done to create a world that has at least the principled ideals of human rights and democracy in the sense of egalitarian. I mean, there has to be something that's going to hold that. If you're relying on just the intellect, it's just not going to cut it. Most people just won't care about the intellectual, the logical reason of why we should treat people well. They need to have a full-bodied, a full human nature experience. So the people of faith are going to be able to lift that kind of thinking up in a divine way. And that's when this sort of purpose liberals think they have about doing what's right for others is somehow made more significant. People of faith should recognize, and it should feel important to them. It should feel right to them. And because of some divine connection. And that's what you're going to rely on. You rely on just liberal thinking and the sort of hatefulness that liberals bring to the table towards their conservative counterparts, then you're never going to get it. Which is fine with me, because that's what works for me. As the devil, I get it. See, this is just one more angle in which evil will prevail. Because liberals, in all of their sense of rightness about the issues that they pursue and advocate for, just really aren't going to amount to anything. Because you just don't have the numbers. And you come from a place of contempt, and you come from a place of, well, judgment, and that's just not going to cut it. That's not what's going to bring peace on earth, if that's what your ultimate goal is. So, you can just start dismounting, because, man, that is just no place for that kind of attitude if you really want peace on earth. But again, I'm not into peace on earth. It doesn't matter to me. I just think human beings cannot do these things. So the liberals have a unique problem all their own, with such contempt for faithful thinkers and believers, which, you can always justify, sure. But without that understanding that you really need them more than they need you. And even though, yes, good things have happened because of liberal thinking, I get it. But you ain't going anywhere with your ideals of peace until you can acknowledge the love that people of faith can bring to this higher ideal. And it will stick. But the more you condemn the conservatives, the more they crawl into their dogmatic thinking, and they abandon their whole divine experience. So you're not helping. You're making things worse, which is okay by me. So, this is, again, kind of a little bit of a love letter for liberal thinking who absolutely will not give up their condemnation for religious or faithful believers because they don't think they are capable of rising above, which is what I have in common with liberals. Because as the devil, Jesus clearly stated his formula, and it was very simple. And it involves a sense of non-judgment, where you don't judge human nature, you don't judge creation, you do not judge each other or yourself. Or, in the more powerful way, Jesus doesn't even want you to judge the moment, your presence, where you are at this moment. If you start to judge it, you're just taking in all of these perceptual clues, and then you start to analyze it, boom, you'll never achieve a sense of divine. So, liberals, if they want peace on earth, and they want the power of their own intellect to carry the issues that they feel are important, you're going to also have to join the faithful, and at least those that love Jesus, in this idea that you're not supposed to be judging each other. You're supposed to love what God created, even if you don't believe in God. Just the idea that creation is what it is. If you don't believe in God, then this shouldn't be a problem for you. Right? Because what is has come into its creation or its evolution naturally. So there's no mistake. It's just where we are. And so you don't judge what Earth is doing and human beings are doing at this moment. And if you can actually